On August 29, 2011, Natalie Monroe will return to teach English at Central Bucks High School East. While her actions have created an unfortunate and incredibly difficult situation, Mrs. Monroe maintains employee rights, and that is the sole reason for her return. My intent this morning is to explain the circumstances of her return, the damage she has created, and the moral and ethical implications of her actions. On February 8, 2011, a blog written by Natalie Munroe, a teacher at Central Bucks East, was discovered by students. In a matter of hours, the blog had gone viral. As word spread of Mrs. Monroe's comments, students and faculty were buzzing in disbelief that a teacher could post such shockingly profane comments. That morning, I asked Mrs. Monroe if she authored the statements. She said yes. Believing that her presence would further incite an increasingly hostile situation, I concluded that her continued presence in the building would be counterproductive. In the ensuing days and weeks, the story of Natalie Monroe's blog and the questions about her right to free speech attracted national and international interest. There was widespread media coverage of this incident as the teacher openly shared the matter with the media. Most media outlets published segments of her blog for public consumption. Speculation was rampant about the validity of her statements, her right to state them, and the ethical and moral implications attached to her decision. Most media outlets chose not to report the most graphic descriptions Mrs. Monroe employed in her blog. One news organization even stated that they could not include content in their publication that would cross the boundaries of good taste. Instead, phrases like, "My students are lazy, disengaged whiners," "grade grubbers," and "complainers" were published. While those particular descriptions of students were not viewed as egregious in the public eye, the public did not have access to the full blog and the darker, more profane images about students, parents, and co-workers that it contained. Images that raise questions about the level of professionalism, integrity, and ethical conduct that is expected to exist in the field of education. Copies of Mrs. Monroe's blog pertaining to students are available to all of you this morning. Whether media outlets choose to unveil the full contents of the blog to the public or not, phrases like, "I hate your kid," "Don't you know how to raise kids?" "Your child has no redeeming qualities," "Your child is a lazy a-hole," "a sneaky jerk blank," "an argumentative F-word," "rat-like," "utterly loathsome," an SH wad, and "frightfully dim." Those phrases evoke shock and hurt. Coupled with a graphic that shows students sitting on a shortened school bus with the phrase, "I don't care if you lick windows, take the special bus, or occasionally pee on yourself. You hang in there, sunshine. You're special." Images like that and statements like those cut deep into the hearts of the students Natalie Monroe taught, including those with special needs, and the families who entrusted their children to her care and to mine. This was their teacher. Mrs. Monroe also took opportunity to describe her colleagues, her building administration, and even central administrators in disparaging terms. Whether or not Mrs. Monroe had the legal right to express her views with such vitriol is not the heart of this issue. No one here is contending that she can't say these things legally. and for that reason, she has a legal right to return. What is at the heart of this issue, however, is the large-scale disruption her comments created and the ensuing damage they have caused the young men and women to whom she was alluding. Natalie Monroe's actions placed the outstanding work that occurs in our school in question, placed my leadership in question, placed our students' merit in the crosshairs of national scrutiny, breached trust with the community, and compromised her professional integrity. Her comments were unprofessional, disrespectful, and disturbing, particularly coming from the heart of an educator. Moreover, and most importantly, they were crass and cruel. The obvious question left unanswered as the school year ended was whether or not Mrs. Monroe would be returning to teach in the fall. I should point out here that the teacher's maternity leave ends this month, and regardless of the moral and ethical issues surrounding her actions, Mrs. Monroe maintains employment rights. On June 28, the district sent Mrs. Monroe a letter via registered mail asking her to contact us. After no response was received, the district sent a series of letters in the second week of July via FedEx, again asking her to contact us. On July 27th, Mrs. Monroe finally made contact with the district and confirmed receipt of all the materials we previously sent. Despite the fact that Mrs. Monroe retains legal employment rights, I would hope none of us would lose sight of the real issue. The real issue is that while something may be legally right, it may not be ethically or morally right. There are consequences that occur when a person chooses to exercise her rights and say outrageous, disrespectful, vulgar, and cruel things about other people, especially when it's a teacher saying terrible things about the young men and women who are in her classroom. As a public school, we are charged with meeting the needs of every student who enters our door, rich or poor, gifted or learning disabled, troubled or triumphant, and guiding them to their full potential so they receive the best gift an education can provide, the opportunity for choice in life. What pains me the most in all of this is how the statements made by Mrs. Monroe have placed our students in the line of fire and caused an entire nation to question their collective merit. Today, I want to set the record straight about who our students are. And I want to set the record straight about who we are as a school community. Central Bucks East is a phenomenal high school and an exceptional environment for our young men and women to develop their gifts. The strength of CB East lies in its people, our stellar faculty, and our remarkable students. 1,640 students attend CB East. They are a mixture of privileged and not as privileged, well-adjusted and not, highly intelligent and highly challenged. They are complex. At times, they are unpredictable. They long for acceptance. They seek clarity and inspiration. They look to us for guidance and stability. Let's remember they're adolescents on the cusp of adulthood, and they're remarkable ones at that. Last year, 100% of our senior class graduated. All 543 seniors earned their diploma. 94% of those seniors are continuing their education at a college or university, a trend that has held steady for the past decade. Each year, many of our students gain admission to some of the most prestigious institutions in the nation, including Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Penn, Cornell, West Point, the Naval Academy, and a host of others. This past year, 230 students graduated with a minimum GPA of 3.5 or higher, and 67 with a GPA of 4.1 or higher. The average SAT score of a Central Bucks East student is over 169 points higher than the national average and 209 points higher than the Pennsylvania average. CBE students score in the top 1% in the state on standardized assessments taken by students in every of the 600-plus high schools across Pennsylvania. I'm sharing these facts with all of you this morning not to brag, but rather to demonstrate the incredible achievement of our students and the opportunities that our teachers create for them at East. But beyond academics, our students participate in 60 clubs and activities, in addition to our extensive athletic, musical, and theatrical programs. Come see one of our theatrical productions. Last year, we performed Les Mis, and it was absolutely magnificent. Come watch our band and our choir concerts. Hear our students perform and see the passion of our instructors. Come to our art shows and see what our students produce. And if you were to spend time in our classrooms, you would see the quality of education our teachers facilitate. But beyond this, our students and their families are inherently good people. I can speak for hours on end about their small acts of kindness, their willingness to lend a hand in ways that don't garner attention, their support and encouragement of one another as friends and as classmates, and their generosity is heartwarming. Last year, CBE students logged over 6,000 hours of community service in activities that reached out to the community and the nation, as well as our troops serving overseas. Events like toy drives, prom dress collections, book donations for tornado-ravaged areas, jeans for teens, support of women's shelters, shoes for third world nations, food drives, and so many more are commonplace in our building. Our students never stop seeking ways to use their talents in service to others. And our faculty is right there with them, modeling, assisting, and supporting these efforts. I know what I've just shared with all of you is lengthy, but I want you to know that these are the students, and this is the school community that Natalie Monroe wrote about. This is the CB East that she contends is filled with frightfully dim, utterly loathsome students. No school is perfect. Every school has issues. But CB East is unquestionably a quality place for students to learn and grow. Maybe that's why Newsweek magazine has ranked CB East as one of the best comprehensive high schools in the nation for the past 4 years running. That's why our community is proud of our school and grateful for the partnership we enjoy. That's why I'd like to place my students up against any in the nation. Likewise for my hardworking and dedicated faculty. And that's why I'm so proud to be my students' principal at CB East. I believe that each of our young men and women is blessed with unique gifts, and it's our responsibility to create an environment that fosters those gifts. An environment that uplifts and connects with students. An environment that values and respects the whole child. As educators, we have a professional and a moral responsibility to mold our students into who they can become, not mock them for who they are. And that's what Mrs. Monroe failed to understand. And that's what's so disappointing about all of this. And that's why Mrs. Monroe's decision to write what she did, coupled with her recent statement that she will not apologize for speaking truth, is in such diametric opposition to the actual truth of who we are, where we're going, and how we've ended up here. Mrs. Monroe retains the right to return to her position. But in exercising her right to speak and by blatantly refusing to apologize for her actions, she has created an unenviable position for herself. She has sacrificed her respect, her professionalism, and her ethical standing as an educator, role model, and mentor for students. And no matter where she goes now, no matter where she intends to teach, that is unavoidable. And as such, Mrs. Monroe has no choice but to assume responsibility for her actions. The question of returning Mrs. Monroe to her classroom versus moving her to another school has been considered. Since this situation has received so much media attention and coverage, and the entire community is fully aware of the situation, it has been concluded that relocating the teacher would be both irresponsible and further disruptive. It is the decision of this district that all parties will be best served by containing the issue and monitoring the known environment at her current school. We will not condone shifting a toxic situation to another building and creating a maelstrom there. On August 29th, our students return to CB East. And so will Natalie Munroe, who continues to stand by her comments. All of this begs the question, what is the right thing for the district to do? The decision to do the right thing does not rest with the Central Bucks School District. Mrs. Monroe is afforded legal employment rights. The decision to do the right thing lies in the hands of the very person whose hands created this controversy, Mrs. Monroe's. My focus will forever be on creating a dynamic learning environment for all students at East. And to that end, I look forward to welcoming our students back to school on August 29th. While Mrs. Monroe's actions have created a controversy that no one deserves, we will continue to provide the high quality of education all of our students deserve. My task as a leader is to guide our school and our students through all of this, and I will do that. Better yet, we're going to do it together as a school community. That's what makes us strong, and that's what makes us CB East. I'm sure many of you have questions, and in a few moments I'm going to be joined at the table by the president of the Central Bucks School District Board of Directors, Mr. Paul Faulkner, and the superintendent of the Central Bucks School District, Dr. N. Robert Laws, to address your questions. Carol Coonahan will serve as moderator for the Q&A. Please know that while we'll do whatever we can to answer all of your questions, we cannot speak for this teacher, and we will not share information that is considered personal or proprietary.